Hey guys, how's it going? This is Mushy Beef with Broadcast.gg, bringing you a tutorial on how to observe in Overwatch. Now, frankly speaking, there's just so much going on in Overwatch that it can be really difficult to observe for. So based on my own experience and the experience of our community, wanted to recommend settings, tips, and tricks for making the spectator experience as enjoyable as possible. So of course you need your mouse and your keyboard, but definitely also recommend a Stream Deck and a controller as well. The controller is highly recommended, and you'll see why later. So first things first, want to go into your options, video, and then display performance stats and turn that off. The hotkey for this is also Control-Shift-Alt-R. Next, you're going to head into controls. The mouse stuff, that's based on your personal preference, but then if you have a controller, this is where I want to go over those settings. So horizontal sensitivity, vertical sensitivity, both of those at zeros, and then of course we go into advanced. The most important factor here will be aim technique. So these are the profiles that determine the relationship between the camera rotation speed and your joystick movement, with the default being dual zone. So what that means is that as you're moving to the edge, or the outer edges, it goes slowly and then suddenly speeds up like that. And then the other mode is exponential ramp. So it starts slow as well, just like in dual, but then as you get to the edges, it will speed up pretty quickly. Whereas in linear ramp, it doesn't start as slowly as the other two, but it's more of a steady ramp up. So in combination with this, you can adjust the aim ease in. So what this does is, this is the sensitivity of your finer movements. So as you're moving the stick a little bit, how does it affect the tilt and the pan? So picture it like you're turning your head left and right. That's going to be your pan. Up and down, that's going to be your tilt. So at an aim ease in of 0, your small movements are going to feel the most responsive. So here I'm moving a little bit left and right, and as soon as I touch the stick, it pretty much moves the camera. And this will work the same for looking up and down as well. So when you set aim ease in to 100, those same fine movements are going to move the camera less. So I want to show this visually. If you have the same movement within the linear curve at aim ease in 0, that same joystick movement will get you less rotational speed early on in the curve. So in practice, what this means is that to make the same turn, you have to move your joystick more at an aim ease in of 100 than at 0. This is where you need to go and find your own personal preference. If you want it to be more responsive, put it down to 0. If you are more jittery with your controls, then keep it at a higher number. 100 is a little bit much, but you should just play around with it to find the setting that's right for you. Add aim ease in to the 3 profiles and you have a lot of customization. So you should just go ahead and check out and see the effects for yourself. Personally, I really like exponential plus an aim ease in of 0. It has that predictability that you want, but I can also get some really nice slow turns while I'm doing free cam. After that, you want to make sure that your reticle is back to default, and then when you open up advanced, make sure that you're showing accuracy as well as making sure the color is back to the default gray. Then you can scroll down to the Spectate menu and you can see players 1 through 12 have an F key each associated with them. So F1 through F6 corresponds to the players on the blue side, on the left side, and F7 through 12 correspond to the players on the red or the right side of the screen. So since I don't like switching teams in a team fight anyways, I generally keep my hands together like this on either F1 through 6 or 7 through 12. And it just makes it more intuitive when you want to swap to a specific hero because the position corresponds with the F keys. Alright, next up are the static cameras or the objective camera. So you can set locations of the static camera with control plus 1 through 9. So I just set the first static camera there. I'm going to set up the second static camera here through this choke point. And then if you press 0, it'll bring you to the objective. So this is already preset in the map and it'll bring you over relatively slowly. If you press 1 that I already set, if I press it again, it'll go quickly to the location. And then you can just set each of these camera locations and then it should save between your matches even. So you can set it once per map and then forget it. So one quick note about control maps though, where there are 3 maps technically within that map. That control point will warp you all the way back to a map that you may not even be playing on, so do be careful about that. Okay, next thing is Spectate toggle third person. Make sure this stays on bind. You need to be able to switch back into third person. So default is space. On a controller, I'm setting it to Y. Showing health bars is not a default hotkey, so you want to make sure that you do set it to a hotkey. I use Alt plus H because it really helps out with your casters as well as your viewers, so when you're in free cam, you can still see how the fight is swinging. Spectate lock-on is going to be left-click here. It produces some undesirable results at times because it makes sure that the subject that you clicked on is in the middle of the frame, even if you're in free cam. So One that is better though is Spectate Target on the reticle. That's going to be right click on your mouse, and I like to use R3 on the controller, so that's clicking down the right control stick. So moving fast, slow, moving up and down, these are really important as well. So that'll be left shift, left control, Q and E on your keyboard. Then on the controller, I use the left and the right triggers to control the altitude, and then the right and left bumpers to control the speed. So this is completely personal preference. I know some observers that actually have it flopped so that the altitude is controlled by the bumpers and the speed is controlled by the triggers. So it's up to you. One of the challenges of using a keyboard and mouse setup is that your left hand is having to do so much. So it takes a lot to be able to coordinate both going slowly, moving left and right, going up and down. In addition, getting a really consistent pan is really difficult, and eventually you actually just run out of space. But when you're using a controller, each of your fingers has a specific role. Your thumbs are for the movement and the tilt in the pan, and then your pointer and your middle finger are for the altitude and speed. And with a controller, your tilts and pans are going to look super consistent, almost like it's on a stabilized arm, because you don't have to keep your mouse movement exactly perfect. Now, regardless of what you use, definitely recommend staying in first person as often as possible. So when you're in free cam and you want to get to the first person, that's where the Spectate Target under reticle comes in handy, because you can get right into the action of the first person by just clicking a button, and then you can move your hands to the F keys. As an observer, you need to leverage your game knowledge and instincts, because you determine the story the audience sees or even misses. You need to think like a caster and understand what players, ultimates, or positioning could be game-changing. In general, checking regularly for the available ultimates on each side is a good idea. Then having an expectation for when the ultimate could be used is even better. Here's some quick tips to make your production higher quality and the viewing experience to be even more enjoyable. Make sure you're hiding chat, just type /H and then it should automatically be there. Just hit enter and you're good to go. Do think about what the audience can see as soon as you enter the game. Sometimes when you get onto a map, the camera is looking into a corner of the room, so make sure to correct for that before you bring in the scene. For bonus points, do a slow crawl before you bring in the scene. It looks a lot more professional and can be a creative way to introduce the audience to that map. This is where the Stream Deck comes in handy. You can use one hand for the movement and one hand to swap into the scene. Holding slow when in free cam is one really good way to make everything look really polished as you're setting up the scene and introducing the map. While holding move fast or slow will affect the speed at which you go up and down, try tapping move up and down for yet another speed. The smoothing will remove jitters if you time it right. And remember to put on those health bars. In free cam, it really helps to have that extra information of how much health each team has. Now you know the settings, tools, and techniques to use, so it's time to practice. You need to take in all the information on the screen, your knowledge of the game, and what your casters are saying to make the right decision, and be comfortable enough to execute. Remember, your job is to tell the story in as clear a way as possible. Discuss with your team and casters on what those goals should be. Capturing the big ultimates regardless of the side, showing the fight only from one team, seeing the perspective of a player that needs to carry in that moment. These are the creative decisions that need to be made in order for you to execute and achieve that goal. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this tutorial. If you liked what you saw, check out our other content on Broadcast.gg and join our Discord with the link at the top of that page. We're a community of esports broadcasters improving by sharing our best practices, whether it be in shoutcasting, hosting, producing, observing, running tournaments, or really anything that goes into making esports broadcasts happen. The music is by Glitch City. The link is in the description below, or just search Glitch X City in your search engine. Thanks guys, and we'll see you next time.